All right, namaste everyone. Sorry about the late start. Sometimes these things happen, but today's podcast is about one of the stupidest things that I have seen in my life, which is I never thought in the world of diplomacy something as stupid as this will happen. But I think, how do you pronounce that jackass's first name? Like Vladimir or Volodymyr? How do you
Just say
pronounce?
Vladimir. Just say Vladimir. It's the same. It's the same name, just pronounced differently as Putin. They're both Vladimirs.
Okay, so he's also a Vladimir. So
Yeah.
Vladimir Zelensky goes to the Oval Office to visit President Trump, allegedly to discuss this so-called mineral deal that they were all supposed to sign or discuss or whatever they were supposed to do. They have approximately 50 minute to an hour press conference where the first 40 minutes are fine and then something happens after 40 minutes and all hell breaks loose. Zelensky allegedly in his language called the vice president of the United States of America a bitch, right? If
Yes.
I'm not
Uh,
mistaken.
Suka bliat. Suka is bitch. Bliat is fuck. So fucking bitch. Though
How
it doesn't
nice.
exactly translate that way. Yeah. It doesn't exactly
Okay.
translate that. Yeah.
Okay. So JD then
Like
clearly JD did not understand.
in a Hindi conversation, it's like when you're frustrated, you'll say banchod. It's like that.
Yeah. So I don't think so. He was swearing at JD Vance. To be fair
No,
to
it,
Zelensky.
it, it was 50-50 here and there. He could have been swearing. See, when you say benchod, you don't know if you're expressing frustration or calling the other person benchod.
Yeah. But
Right?
anyways,
That's it's not language you should be using in that setting. Full stop.
that, clearly in that setting and see it depends on who's using it. If you're Ukraine, if it is not for the Western bloc, basically the Anglo-Saxon world basically bailing them out, the Europeans giving them money and other things, and the Americans giving them all the weaponry they need to fight this war. And clearly, they have shown the Russian military might is very overrated. Even a Chuttusa Ukraine has been able to successfully stop them till a certain way for the last 2+ years. So this guy has a spat with JD Vance till the extent that Trump has to yell at him in
Yes.
front of everyone. So I'm just narrating the incident so that I'm not missing something. Then it's very clear that he was thrown out of the office, which they
Yes.
don't say he was thrown out, but he was told to leave. He
Yes.
leaves, goes to Fox News. Did you see his Fox interview? I saw
Yes.
his Fox interview too. It is one of the most absurd things I've seen in my life, the Fox interview. Then I think the cocaine must have worn off. Then he writes the longest thread I have seen in my life.
Yes.
Even I have not written such threads.
Yes. Groveling apology that did nothing for Ukraine.
So, okay, first of all, you follow this a lot closer than I do. This is your kind of full time job. Have you ever seen something like this? Could you recall something as stupid as this?
No. I've maybe when Musharraf came to Delhi to the Agra summit, and he held that press conference, but even that was much more polite than what Zelensky did. But look what happened to Musharraf, and look what happened to Pakistan after that. Same thing. Same thing. See, uh, I know a lot of people who have staffed these kind of high tension meetings, and in high tension meetings, one of the things both teams advise their presidents or prime ministers is keep your calm, keep your calm, keep your calm. They prefer to read out from prepared remarks so that the calm remains. And they keep it very formal. It becomes very difficult, but you never ever, because everybody knows that losing your temper or deviating from the script, even forget losing temper, can bring about a reaction that plays into your opponent's hand. If you lose your temper, you play into the opposition's hand. That is something you avoid. If you go off script, you give the opposition a sudden advantage. You avoid it. He didn't get it. Now, notice this has been a pattern of behavior with him, because Biden has also complained about this. A lot of people have complained about this. the issue really here was, I don't think we got into the nuances. He went on comparing Trump to Obama and Biden. Now, I've tweeted out that interview of Clinton. Do you want to play that quick interview?
All right. It's on your handle, right?
I'll send it to you on Twitter. Um, one second, let me find it. इसको मैं भेजता हूँ तेरे को.
No, I got it. Bill Clinton on Putin in 2013, right? That one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I got that. Just playing it for everyone.
Look, Mr. Putin he's very smart.
You know him better than most people.
Yeah, I do.
What was he like behind closed doors, away from, the sort of the public utterances?
Smart and remarkably, we had a really good, blunt relationship.
How blunt?
Brutally blunt.
Ever fisticuffs?
No, but I think the right strategy most of the time but it's frustrating to people in your line of work. You should be brutally honest with people in private. And then if you want them to help you, try to avoid embarrassing them in public.
Right.
Now, sometimes they do things which make it impossible for you to keep quiet. But by and large, I found all the people I dealt with appreciated it if I told them the truth. How I honestly felt and what our interests were and what our objectives were. And they also appreciated it when I didn't kick them around in public for as long as I couldn't kick them around. So I that's my experience. And
did Putin ever renege on a personal agreement he made to you?
He did not.
So behind closed doors, he could be trusted.
He kept his word in all the deals we made.
So why is Bill Clinton allowed to praise Putin?
Now, no, forget the praise. Let's just talk common sense out here.
Mm-hmm.
George Bush says he never broke a deal with George Bush. Bill Clinton says he never broke a deal with Bill Clinton. Trump says he never broke a deal with Trump. Only Obama and Biden keep complaining that he broke deals with them. So who's the problem with? Putin or Obama and Biden? Clearly, it's with Obama and Biden, right? Because that is where the inconsistency is coming in. Second, there is a very telling statement. Now, you are insulting Trump by saying he doesn't know his opponent, he doesn't know what he's walking into, and Trump is going on telling you he never broke a deal with me. You are still being impudent and saying, no, he treats... What is Trump saying? Trump is saying Putin respects strength, he treats people differently. What this fellow was essentially saying was, you're weak and you don't know it. Second thing, he said, Obama gave you sheath, I gave you javelins. That was a very important thing that everybody missed. Why? Because Obama believed that signing a piece of paper is an assurance. It was not. The moment Trump came to power, what he did was he authorized the sale of javelin missiles to the Ukrainians. So he understood that a ceasefire requires security guarantees, that those America will be providing some and Europe will have to provide the rest of those security guarantees. Zelensky went on reinforcing things that Trump said or knew already or had done already, showing to an American audience that Trump did not know, Trump did not care, or Trump had not done. So when J.D. Vance characterized it as an insult, he was 100% accurate. Because Zelensky had come there to take the benefit of everything Trump had done without acknowledging that Trump probably knew better than him how to deal with Putin. Trump had a record of tying down Putin to agreements that Putin kept. And Trump understood security guarantees very, very well, probably better than Zelensky did.
Now,
so you have to understand the last 15 to 20 years of that history of that relationship to understand why JD snapped and why what Zelensky said was an insult. You see a lot of the superficial commentary. Oh, you're blaming Zelensky for being rude to a man known to be rude. boss Trump went out of his way to accommodate Zelensky, because Zelensky misbehaved 2 times before that final blow up in that entire conversation. So
Now,
he went on insulting Trump from the get-go. This was about to be the mineral deal signing. This wasn't about anything else. What does he do? He takes out photos to show Trump. This is things Trump would have already seen. There's nothing Zelensky seen that Trump hasn't in terms of intelligence.
in fact, their entire war depends on US sharing intelligence with them.
Exactly right.
That's like, I don't understand what kind of stupidity is being on display. Like, so I'm just trying to be as fair as possible in my head. Why would Zelensky do what he did? Like, when you don't have any cards on the table, right? Literally, he has no cards on the table. His nation is too small. If the Americans don't back him, he's toast. See, if America doesn't back him, Russia takes over Ukraine in no time. It's as simple as that. Russia takes over Ukraine in no time. So he knows that, but he's still playing hardball. Is he so invested in the American democratic establishment political argy-bargy of the last 10 years that he has not realized that power has changed here?
Look, there are several explanations for what happened. One, the most infantile but also an obvious explanation, is the effects of cocaine. The second is the fact that he's been mollycoddled so much by the Western leadership, who essentially created him. You know, this narrative of him being some great war president, it is a completely concocted hagiography created around him by the Western press and Western leaders who need a hero in the position at the moment. As a result of that, and as a consequence of that, they have always avoided telling him the harsh truth to his face. He comes, throws a tantrum, and he gets what he wants because he's a fantastic tool for validation back home. European leaders do not enjoy high levels of public support. So what do? They get Zelensky over, who they know is manipulable, who they know is a beggar who's dependent on them. You get him over and your popularity ratings go up by 2-3 points for about 2-3 weeks, which for them is more than enough. Okay, so he's also that tool. He's never been used to hearing the truth. He's never been used to being spoken down to ever since this started. He's been cocooned in a sort of spoiled brat environment ecosystem that broke down catastrophically on that day. And he has a long history of behaving like this. He was briefed, I know for a fact he was briefed by his handlers to behave properly, what to expect and what to say, what not to say. Apparently he chose to avoid what his handlers had told him to do, which is why you saw the Ukrainian ambassador put her head in.
You're talking about this particular image. I think this is like what, I mean, I feel bad for the Ukrainian ambassador. Like, you know, poor woman, she did not deserve this. Like,
I feel bad for Ukraine because Ukraine's been fighting this entire thing so bravely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's sad that an asshole like this had to go and fuck it all up for the Ukrainians. Ukraine deserves better.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that in this entire episode, we should not forget it was Russia who invaded Ukraine. Ukraine did not invade Russia. That needs to be told.
That needs to be told. You know, you can claim it's part of an ongoing conflict since 2014 and Russians were terribly treated and Russians were continuously killed for the 8-year period in between. But bro, this is not how you conduct a war. Okay, you have to declare, you have to give an ultimatum. There are all kinds of requirements for a modern day war. You don't just go around telling people you're not going to do this, not going to do this, and then go ahead and do exactly what they said you'll do. Okay, so is it Russia's fault? Yes. Is there enough blame to go around on both sides? Sure. But is Russia outright illegal in what it did? Yes. There is no second international opinion on the illegality of the Russian invasion. Now, the illegality of it aside, Does it mean Russia does not have just cause in several cases? No, Russia does have a whole load of good reasons. And has Zelensky done a lot to exacerbate it? Yes, he has. Russia gave him a peace deal in Istanbul. They were on the verge of signing a peace deal in Istanbul till Boris Johnson flies down and screws up the entire deal. What do you expect?
I mean, okay, now let's take each and every player in this, starting with Canada. जस्टिन ट्रूडो क्या कर रहा है उधर जाके? वो खुद रिजाइन कर चुका है एज अ प्राइम मिनिस्टर. द मैन हैज ऑलरेडी रिजाइन्ड. What business does Justin Trudeau have waltzing around and making all these giant comments?
Could you bring up the photo that I tweeted out of the 19 zeros? I want you to see the expressions on their face.
Yeah, wait. I'm going to put up the photo. I think I have to go down. Just give me a moment. Aha, I got it. Okay. Yeah, this one, right? Why is Trudeau so happy?
Yeah.
He's
Exactly.
so
Zoom in on
happy.
his face.
I can't zoom in because इसमें वो feature नहीं होता है Twitter पे. But yeah, it's really stupid. It's really stupid. But yeah, I don't know why Justin Trudeau is so happy.
Actually, 1 second. I think I should be able to zoom in x.com because that facial study is something I think it's quite nice to see. Okay.
Like, what are these people doing? Are they trying to say we will save Ukraine even if America doesn't? What are these people smoking? They don't even protect their own countries. America protects them.
Now, look at this. This is the photo. Can you see it?
Yeah, I've put it up.
Okay. Now, let me zoom in on this fellow's face.
Oh my God. Why do I have to look at him?
He's literally got the stupidest smile around.
Nobody else does.
Nobody else is smiling.
He's like, "Hey, मैं चले आने के पहले एक और फोटो ले लिया."
Exactly. He's looking like a stupid little child. Oh, well, this Mark Rutte is smiling like an idiot. But then he knows he screwed everybody else.
उसके बाजू वाला देखना, वो उसको तो ऐसा लग रहा है he's constipated.
Yeah. Staub, who's the Finnish guy, is smiling. Pedro Sanchez is smiling, but nobody's smiling more stupid than Justin Trudeau.
My goodness.
So he's just now collecting photos for his album and his memoir. That's it.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. Are the British going to send troops to Ukraine to fight Russia? Are they going to do that? Are the Europeans going to do that?
Remember, that video was taken out of context. What Britain and France have promised to do is, if and when a ceasefire happens and security guarantees are given, at that point, to enforce a buffer zone, British and French troops will go there. Now, let's be very clear about one thing. They have said this to prop up Zelensky. Russia will never accept a single NATO troop in Ukraine ever. So Starmer and Macron are trying to stir the pot even more. No ceasefire, no NATO troops. Ceasefire, NATO troops. They are actually playing a whole load of mischief out there, which Trump understands pretty damn well. So they also know. This is like saying, bro, Kushal, tomorrow if aliens come to invade Earth, I will be the first person standing outside your house protecting it. I commit troops to that today. Okay, now the problem with this is, I know aliens are not going to come and invade. Plus, I'm going to be in Delhi. So the logistics, there is a much higher chance of them bombing your house from aerial bombardment than there is of me being able to book a flight ticket, take it and come to your house in time. Okay. Now, the British and the French know this is the case. But they will offer troops because they know they will never be called to fulfill that promise. It's that simple.
I mean, look, I don't understand any guarantee from the European Union, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, or the United Kingdom, what weight does it carry? If I was Ukraine, the first question I would be telling them was, "Bhai, you rely on the United States of America." In fact, Trump keeps taunting these people that you guys don't even pay up the 2% that you're supposed to. That is part of the NATO deal. What is the biggest problem Trump has with these people? Pay your 2%. We will protect you. I will be the global policeman. But all Trump is doing is, hello, we need a review of the price you're paying. That's all Trump says. Trump's That's all Trump is saying, right? And these people will protect Ukraine.
Yes. Now,
Okay.
see, here's the thing. When you talk about these countries, um, as major powers, we tend to still think of, uh, you know, uh, Britain, France, Germany as major powers. Uh, do you know how many true, not obsolete frontline air fighters the German Air Force has?
Oh, I
Yes.
had that link up. I was looking this up because when I was discussing with you, right? I
So
I had that thing, Magar, I've completely forgotten it.
they have about 130 frontline fighter aircraft.
Wow.
Out of them,
Wow.
out of them, only about 40 are serviceable at the moment. Okay. Do you know how many? Because this is turned into such an artillery battle. Do you know how many pieces of artillery the French army has?
So I'll put it up for you. This is European military strength as per globalfirepower.com. Yeah. I wanted to share it with you. This is just a power index
No,
that
I
they're
remove this. This is useless. This is not worth it. Remove it. But artillery, because this is such an artillery battle happening for the last 3 years in Ukraine. How many pieces of artillery does the French army have? Do you know? The great French army that invaded Russia at one point. This is the French army that won the First World War and the Second World War.
no clue. I
They
don't
have
follow
seven.
this.
They have 70 pieces of artillery
What?
plus minus 70.
No, that can't be real.
Yeah, 70. They had about 100. They gave about 30, 35 to Ukraine, and now they have about 70 pieces left. Give or take 5. 70. Not 170, not 70, 100, 70 pieces of artillery.
और let me get this right. और ये यूक्रेन को प्रोटेक्ट करेंगे, ये खुद को कर
Yeah,
सकते हैं क्या?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So look at the ludicrousness of all of this. And remember, most of these countries have deindustrialized because they don't have the kind of stockpiles of artillery, ammunition, and things like that a country like America, which is actually providing protection to other countries, has. These people are the ones, when giants fight, when the two parents fight, the kids will always be shadow boxing on the side. Europe is like the kids shadow boxing on the side. We need to understand Europe does not have a coherent defense policy. It has no united defense policy. It's a sum total of 27 different defense policies, all of which go at a completely different tangent from each other.
But do you think Trump's behavior will force Western Europe to rethink its defense now that Trump has
Yes,
behaved the
I,
way he
I,
has?
I think it will. I think the issue here is that even if they rethink their defense, they have to make up, they need to invest now $500 billion, $500 billion to make up for the last wasted 20 years when they did not invest in defense. Number one. Number two, when you've gotten rid of your industrial capacity, it's not something you can buy off the shelf and create again in 2-3 years. It's going to take you 10-15 years to create that industrial capacity and that workforce all over again. The third problem with European defense is that, unlike America, say when Lockheed Martin or Boeing decide to make a new fighter, they find the best subcomponents at the cheapest prices possible. In Europe, because 4 or 5 countries will sign on to every single project, what ends up happening is that it is not based on the best subcomponent at the best price. If Portugal or Spain had signed up to 20%, they have to get 20% of the business. It doesn't matter that that particular subcomponent that they manufacture is third rate and too expensive. This has been the case in European program after program after program after program. The cost of the Eurofighter inflated to the extent that it did precisely because every country wanted its work share. France had initially joined the Eurofighter. It broke off and created the Rafale, which is why the Rafale looks so much like the Eurofighter, because the other three countries refused to accept a French engine. Okay, so because of all of this, you now have two fighters who do the exact same thing in Europe, and that one original Eurofighter has three different variations, all of which added to the cost. So it is completely chaotic. How are you going to bring it all together? And do you think any of these countries is going to accept? Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, I don't know. So I still am trying to figure it out.
So there are such compounded shits happening with this entire story. What are you going to do? You think any European country is going to say, no, in the larger interests of European defense, I will give up my industrial share? Are you kidding me? They're not going to do it. The only thing that Europeans have agreed to give up their industrial share is in nuclear, where they accept France and Britain will be the only two nuclear powers. They don't want nuclear weapons. But, even France and Britain, France, in fact, has been quite clear that the French nuclear arsenal is not the EU nuclear arsenal. It is not. They are very clear the French nuclear arsenal is not going to be used to protect Berlin. It is going to be used to protect Paris. If Berlin goes up in smoke, then Berlin can go up in smoke. Now, do you know why they came to this position? Because the Germans asked them to come to this position. So the French used to have a missile called the Pluton. Let me just get this up. Okay, now let me share this thing. Okay, can you see this now?
Yeah.
Okay. It had a range, as you can see here. Can you see here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of just 120 kilometers. It was a short-range nuclear missile. Very small, like our Prithvi kind of missile. And this missile, the Germans claimed, would be used to bomb German troops, nuclear bomb German troops who were fighting to defend Paris. Because in those days, if the USSR had to invade Europe, it would have to first go through Germany to get to France. So under German pressure, you look at the German argument, it's a very valid argument. The Germans will be fighting the Russians around Hamburg or whatever. France will panic, and then France will launch a nuclear missile at Russian troops, but lots of German troops, and it will be fired into German land. It will kill German troops and people in order to kill Russians. Logical argument. So Germany was very logical in its argument. France understood the problem, and it had come up with a replacement missile called the Hades that was also cancelled then. It was deployed and then cancelled and withdrawn completely. And so the French came up with this doctrine that the French nuclear, because there were all these contradictions, the French said that the French nuclear arsenal is France's nuclear arsenal. It is not NATO's nuclear
European arsenal.
or a European arsenal. Because the moment it becomes a European arsenal, look at the not the contradiction, the push and pull. Say Germany is invaded.
Mhm.
If it is an EU arsenal, Germany will immediately ask Paris to, when its troops are collapsing, Germany will ask Paris to use its nuclear weapons when the first Russian crosses the German border. For Paris, that is unacceptable because if they use a nuclear weapons against Russian troops who have not entered Paris, who have not entered France, Paris has made itself a nuclear target, not for France, but for some other country. On the other hand, if we take the German scenario, which is the troops come all the way up to Western West Germany, up to Hamburg and Dusseldorf and the Bonn-Dusseldorf-Hamburg corridor, okay, and which means Germany has basically collapsed rapidly, and they are about to enter French territory. They then have to bomb Hamburg, Dusseldorf in order to stop Russian troops, in which case Germans die in the largest number. So it was completely incompatible with their European commitment. So either way, France was going to get fucked. If it did it when Russian troops entered Germany, it was sacrificing Paris. If it did it when Russian troops had almost conquered most of Germany and entered Hamburg, Dusseldorf, uh, it was then screwing the Germans over doubly, killing people who had fought to defend them. There are such severe contradictions in European defense policy. How are you going to come up with a united front, bro?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, what about the argument that uh, if Putin kind of goes with the Chinese and all those sides, um, this only weakens the Western strength overall in the globe. So why is Trump doing what he's doing? How does it help the Western bloc in general? What
So
Trump
the
is
main
doing
thing
is
is,
really strengthening
the
Russia.
look, he is, and that's a very good thing. We've been arguing for that for a very long time. India's foreign policy position since 1947, in fact, since the 1900s, has been Russia and China should never get together. We've been playing a divide and rule between Russia and China for the last 150 years. Not 150, but at least for the last 100 years. And it has never suited us for Russia and China to be together. So for the last 20 years, we spent telling the Americans, stop your NATO expansion. You are causing unnecessary problem. You're driving Russia into Chinese arms. And they'd go on saying, no, 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 no. The Russians hate the Chinese much more. They will never accept Chinese overlordship. And yet, what do you see? They are essentially a commodity supplier to China. It has become, at least since 2022, or actually since 2014, Russia is stuck in a Chinese monopsony. Monopoly is when there is only one seller. Monopsony is when there's only one buyer. And one of our reasons that Russia has become our biggest supplier of oil and gas is because we want to break that monopsony that it has with China. Of course, China buys a lot more. They're much more industrial, much richer, so they buy a lot more than we do. But we've been trying to break that for a very, very long time. So now, if America is saying you should no longer fund Chinese industry with your molybdenum and lithium and rare earths and oil and gas, instead what we do is we lift all sanctions on you and you supply us instead so that we get all of this for cheap. It suits Russia, it suits India, it suits America. Because right now, America has been dependent on China for rare earths. Now, understand, rare earths are not that rare. They're actually quite abundant. But every time somebody else has tried to get in there, China does predatory pricing and kicks them out of the market. Now, when you have a country like Russia, which doesn't look at prices, it looks at commodities as a strategic product. It breaks the Chinese hold on the commodities market. And after the stunt the Chinese were pulling during COVID, where they had withheld supply of rare earths for a lot of industrial uses, which is why there was a semiconductor shortage and things like that. Remember that Kushan spoke about in your podcast. That was one of the reasons for that. So this suits everyone well except Europe. Why? Because Europe decided to turn Russia into its enemy.
Yeah, that could be one of the reasons. But for me, it's so stupid. How does I saw that small clip of John Mearsheimer, where in 2015 he said, "What's the point of any of this?" And anyways, isn't a neutral-ish Ukraine better for the world, for both West and Russia? Like, why this obsession of getting Ukraine on their side completely? Like,
I'll tell
I
you
don't
how this works.
understand the point
This
of
is
it.
again, listen. This is the contradiction of the policy. Now, assume Kushal hates Abhijit and Abhijit hates Kushal, and this little black line that separates us is the only thing keeping the peace, because this is the fence between us. Now, a normal country, if Abhijit hates Kushal, will want the thickness of this particular black line to increase, to become a buffer state. That is what a buffer state is. Now, what ends up happening is Europe decides instead of having more buffers, they claim Russia as a threat, but they want to keep expanding their border with Russia. How does that make sense? Which means they never ever saw Russia as a threat. They always wanted to go in and weaken Russia. So Russia has always been right. Now, this itself creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, because what happens is when you have one or two countries in NATO, let's bring up a map here. What is this map of? Okay, because that would be easier to understand. 1 second. Okay. Now, let me share this. Okay, can you full screen this?
Sure.
Okay, now, see, before, in the first round of NATO, after the collapse of the USSR, the only country that had, the only NATO country that had a border with Russia was Norway. Okay, it was Norway. And Norway, because here, can you see this border here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Since then, they went on expanding to Hungary. Oh, 1 second, let me remove this. Hungary, Poland, Lithuania. Now see what's here. This is a Russian enclave of Kaliningrad, which means, and this is about 150 kilometers. This is about 150 kilometers. You added 300 kilometers of border. Why did you do that? If you thought they're a threat, then you shouldn't want that border. You already had 1,000-kilometer buffer between Berlin and Moscow here in the form of Poland and Belarus. Why did you go there? Okay, now with all the latest expansion, you know what you've done? You had 150 kilometers of border here. You just expanded it by 1,200 kilometers here. Why? Why did you do that? You expanded it to 150 kilometers here, 200 kilometers here in Estonia and Latvia. Why? You then want to go to Ukraine and expand it by a further 2,000 kilometers here. You also wanted to go to Georgia and expand it by about 400-500 kilometers here. Are you mad?
No, but मेरे को समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि like it, this whole episode, to me, I still don't understand. It's rather naive. Like, don't you think Ukrainian lives don't matter? Like, see, I mean,
They
in
never
fact,
have. Let's be very, very clear about this. Ukrainian lives have never mattered to the Europeans. You know, the Europeans, if they wanted, the Europeans and the Americans, if they wanted, could have gifted the Ukrainians 200 F-16s and 150 Mirage 2000s, which would have turned the tide of the war very, very quickly. For 3 years now, they could have made that decision on day one, trained them up solidly for a year, year and a half, and all those fighters could have entered the Ukrainian this thing. They did not. Why? Because they did not want Ukraine to win the war. They wanted a consistent slowing. They did not want the war to come to an end, because they wanted to be prolonged and Russia to get bogged down, and for it to be a slow grinding death which no country can sustain over 15 to 20 years. So, if Ukrainians think that Europe was their friend, or Europeans believe that they're Ukraine's friends, absolute bullshit.
Listen, but don't you think the Europeans are entitled to feel scared with Russia as expansionism there too? I mean, I'm trying to think from both sides of the coin now.
Sure. If you're scared of Russian expansion, why will you then expand to Russia's borders? If you're scared, you should maintain your distance.
Okay, that's a fair answer. But I still believe...
It's like saying I'm scared of the Rottweiler that walks down the street and then go and poke my finger into its nose and its eyes. How does this make sense? You tell me how this makes sense. See, I'm hearing the European rhetorical position. Russia is evil, Russia's trying to expand. But the only person who's been expanding in the last 20, 30 years has been the EU and NATO. Then when you're asked about it, you say, oh, well, it's a sovereign right. Everybody has a sovereign right. Sure. You have a sovereign right to stick your finger into the Rottweiler's face, but then don't complain if the Rottweiler bites. There is no logic that explains Europe's actions other than malignancy. Maybe stupidity, but mostly malignancy. There is nothing that explains its half-hearted support of Ukraine. It could have given Ukraine all, and trust me, there is no shortage, even though we discussed shortage of artillery and manpower and things like that. Between America and France, France is it's going for an all Rafale fleet and getting rid of its Mirage 2000s. It would have cascaded all the Mirage 2000s to Ukraine. America could have easily provided 100, 150, 200 F-16s off the cuff. No issues. They did. Why did they not?
Okay, one last question before I take other क्योंकि बहुत सारे questions आए हैं. हरिओम 5000 लोग
to me please.
हाँ नहीं मैं खोलूंगा. 5000 लोग के ऊपर लाइव देख रहे हैं तो मैं ही दुखी हो गया उनके क्वेश्चन देख के. तो मेरा एक one last question था. What is the way out for Zelensky in this? I didn't want to open the guest questions.
So if we go into let's again look at this, a map of Ukraine. Okay, this is the one we shall choose to work off. One second. Let me. Okay, this is good. Yeah, perfect. Share screen.
Okay, putting it up.
Yeah.
Just I see the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, putting it up.
Okay, now this is East Bank Ukraine. So this is the Donetsk River, the Dnieper River, and this is the east of all of this. So Dnieper ke east mein, this would be Kharkiv and places like that. Lugansk, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, Kherson. Okay. These are the 4 oblasts that Russia is occupying, in addition to Crimea, which was annexed in 2014. Okay. Now, understand all these areas are mostly Russian majority areas. Okay. If you had settled for peace in 2014, you would have only lost this. You did not. You went on violating Minsk 1, Minsk 2, Minsk 3, which means you started losing more and more of this. Now, the problem here is West Bank Ukraine, Odessa out here, has one of the largest Russian populations around. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to abandon Odessa just like that? Odessa should be somewhere here, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, where I'm fiddling
Got
my
it.
mouse.
Got it.
But now, this means you cut off Ukraine completely you turn Ukraine into a landlocked country. Because of what Ukraine has done to its Russian minority, more so since the invasion began, because they've been absolutely brutal with their Russian minority, which has essentially validated all of Russia's complaints since the war began. It means no Russian minority here will be abandoned, no Russian minority here will be abandoned. And in any case, none of these lands actually belong to Ukraine. They were all Russian lands which were illegally given to Ukraine by Khrushchev. Let me bring up that map also. You remember we did a whole podcast on this. Lands ceded to Ukraine by... Okay, 1 second. Okay, Khrushchev and Lenin. Now I want you to contrast these two. Now I can't keep both up, but
No, you have to copy the URL and paste it on this screen, and then go back, forward, back. As
I just share the new screen. Share screen. Okay, check this out.
Got it. Putting it up.
So can you see this?
Yeah.
Technically, only this is core Ukrainian territory. This is actually annexed Poland. This was part of Poland, which after World War II, Stalin seized and gave it to Ukraine. The whole of eastern Ukraine was Russian majority given to Ukraine by Lenin. And Khrushchev, because he himself was Ukrainian, gave this to Crimea to Ukraine. Now, there is a principle of international law that once you've accepted territorial cessation, you can't go back on it. The problem is what happens now. NATO is the one that has laid the precedence for this. They accepted Serbia and Montenegro as a country and Kosovo as part of Serbia. But then when Serbian atrocities against the Kosovars grew, they decided, no, Kosovo can become an independent country. Now, when you have set that precedent, how do you say that the Russians of Ukraine cannot cede from Ukraine in response to persecution? It's the same argument. There you go. NATO set the precedent. NATO set the precedent with Bosnia. They set the precedent with Kosovo. It's that simple.
Yeah, I just honestly, the reason I feel terrible is like innocent Ukrainians did not sign up for this shit.
Look, the Ukrainians did not sign up for the shit. This is what happens when you elect jokers.
And he keeps on removing the opposition. He doesn't hold elections in Ukraine.
Doesn't hold elections. He keeps seizing their property and he keeps banning the opposition parties. What the hell? So, Ukrainians have made some very, very bad decisions that are coming home to roost. In many cases, they did not even make the decisions. It was a whole bunch of NGOs and shit like that that goaded this entire situation in 2014. There's that very famous tape of Victoria Nuland. And this is the evil of the George Soros network. This is literally the Soros war. This should be called the Soros war.
It's just crazy. Anyways, chalo, I'll put one question now on the screen and we'll answer them fatafat. Trump likely to target UK, EU for supporting Zelensky. Yeah, target is a very loaded word. Yeah, Trump says a lot of things, but उसकी कथनी
He
और
will,
करनी में बहुत difference होता है यार.
he will in different ways. He will.
That's just honestly, yeah, Abhijit, I have noticed that's just his way of negotiating.
That doesn't matter. He's going to target them. He's going to target them. How he does it is a different matter, but he's going to target them. I know for a fact he's very pissed off by the show of support for Zelensky that they tried after Zelensky was rude in the office. So if Europe thinks it's getting away after that little stunt that they pulled off, they're sadly mistaken. I bet you if Keir Starmer or Macron go back to the White House now, the reception will not be as warm as it was last week. Wait and watch.
Fair enough. Okay. Now, this is a lamba question. So, first is why is Zelensky making bahana and not signing each time when he's about to sign the mineral deal? That's a good question. Like, why is he doing that? Does he think signing the mineral deal is a losing proposition and maybe he benefits more till the war keeps on going?
Look, the basic thing is he doesn't want to pay back. He's angling for all the seized Russian assets, of which there are about $500 billion, which he wants. And his thing is, you should keep half, whatever you've given us, you should keep out of that. The rest you should give for reconstruction of Ukraine. Okay. And so selling off the mineral rights, and this is actually him being a good president. Him selling off mineral rights in a time of weakness. They've already sold off 30% of their agriculture to Monsanto and companies like that, all of which are owned by BlackRock in a time of weakness. He doesn't want to repeat that with mineral rights. If they exist, question mark if they exist, but if they exist, they're all in the Russian areas of Ukraine, which are already under Russian occupation. He doesn't want to sell it off. Are the French also contesting for those rights? Yes, they are. They also want the right to extract those minerals. And Soviet era resource estimates are notorious. It was the Soviet era thing that was responsible for Afghanistan is worth $2 trillion and all of that. And that was complete bunkum. Those were not extractable resources. See, you can have resources, but are they extractable, commercially extractable resources? No, they're not. So do we know these are commercially extractable resources? No, we're not. We don't.
So the next one is all these minerals are in Luhansk, Donetsk, and Kherson, which are in Russian contract. What minerals are they talking about?
Exactly right. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Now, remember, Trump was willing to take the risk to go prospect and see. It may not have been commercially viable, but they were willing to do that. And for Trump, it was that it would create trust between Russia and him as well. That we are now invested in Russian territory or territory that could very possibly be recognized as part of Russia. And it was also a way of screwing over Russia because it would mean actual Americans within gunshot range, which would then bring America into the war, had any Americans been killed. So it was a double-edged sword for everybody out there. He sold the risk to Russia, to Ukraine. He sold the opportunity for rapprochement to Russia. And we're not even sure that they're commercial.
Okay, the next question is, so why is Europe giving so much away on Ukraine and now threatening Americans about NATO? What do they gain? I mean, they have to spend so much more money. So it's a lose-lose deal for them. So why is Europe being silly?
This is classic delusion of people who have... Okay. Remember, India stopped being profitable in 1911 or 1919. I forget what. After that, the net outflow was from Britain to India. Britain was subsidizing India from 1919 onwards for certain. And that is what ultimately bankrupted them because they did not understand profit and loss. Now, Europe calls itself the empire of norms. They believe that they have set all the norms, not America. America has followed their lead, which is partially true, in setting the global norms since the 1990s. They have also been focusing on social welfare, not on defense. And America has been footing the defense bill for them. So they believe that America is the cow that they can lead around by the nose. They're finding out that is not the case. But the problem is when you've been led to believe that for the last 30 years, mental adjustment takes a very, very long time.
Fair enough. Is the US-Russia friendship possible in these coming 4 years?
I believe so. It is. Within the next year, if Trump sews up a supply deal taking away all of China's oil, gas, and commodities supply America, short circuits and signs some kind of an alliance pact. Can the next president, if he's a Democrat, withdraw from it? Yes, he can. But the dependencies that you've built up, can you break them so easily? I doubt that very much. But if J.D. Vance becomes the next president, 4 years possible, 8 years guaranteed. One J.D. Vance presidency will be enough to reorient that entire policy.
Do you think the European and Canadian grandstanding after the VZWH disaster will amount to anything? Can they really fill in for the American? Well, nobody can fill. Venezuelan, I think. VZ will be Venezuela.
Zelensky. Volodymyr Zelensky.
Oh, Vladimir Zelensky. Oh, Vladimir Zelensky White House disaster. यार क्या लोग acronyms use करते हैं आजकल, आदमी भी confused हो जाता है.
It amounts to nothing other than pissing off Trump, who's already very pissed off.
Yeah.
So if Europe is looking at getting anything more out of America, it is simply not going to be able to get it anymore. So I wish them very, very good luck. They think they can get away without consequences. They're acting like Zelensky juniors. There is going to be very, very severe consequences to pay as we go ahead. Trump does not forget. He's a vindictive man.
भाई ये मैं तेरे को बोलता हूँ, ये जो नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है ना, ये 4D नहीं है, ये 4000D चेस है. Zelensky, is he a Russian agent breaking you and US? I give up.
You know, these days I won't be surprised if anything comes true, because all conspiracy theories end up becoming truth. So you know what, Srinidhi, you might have actually hit on something. Like I've always said that Rahul Gandhi is a BJP agent. It may be. You know, he's an ethnic Russian. He's an ethnic Jew, but he's an ethnic Russian. He comes from a Russian-speaking family, not a Ukrainian-speaking family. From Krivoy Rog, which is a Russian city.
Okay. EU leaders can't win against Putin, I'm assuming is the intention here. They know that. Why would you want a war to continue? If EU uses frozen Russian assets, won't Putin retaliate? What is Putin supposed to do? Like, baith ke bhajan kare ho?
We already discussed this, and what does Putin have to retaliate with? What European assets are there in Russia right now? Right. So, and we already discussed this in depth anyway during our...
Yeah. So, okay, this is JD competing with Musk for the title of the best kid? And also, we got to see what it would have been for us if it was Rahul Gandhi instead of Narendra Modi as PM. Yeah, man.
No, it's look, we've dodged a bullet with Raga. Raga is literally, I mean, Zelensky is more professional than Raga in that sense. Okay. Zelensky, he's at least been a war leader. Raga's been a basket leader at best. He's a leader of good times. He's not a leader for bad times. He also pulls off the stunt. Probably it's the same PR agency running his PR that told him to go about in a white shirt and whatever. But no, JD and Musk is not competition. You look at all of these people. They are all extremely high achievers in their own right. And they've all been groomed for some kind of succession in some form or fashion. And they all come from a very similar intellectual bandwidth within the system. With Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, JD, Musk, they're all people who have been alienated so completely by the left in America They're not competing.
Yes,
This is
some
coming
live.
from a place of genuine pissed offness with the Democrats and the left in America.
Yeah, but somebody in the live stream said, Jade, Rahul Gandhi will do a caste census in Ukraine.
He will. He's
Yeah.
chatas enough.
Okay. This is actually a genuinely good question, and I'll explain why I feel it is. Like, what is the point of comparing Modi's visit with Zelensky's visit? Yeah, India is a far more relevant and powerful country than Ukraine. यार इतनी तो इज्जत करो अपने आप की यार.
But look,
मतलब,
it's also different geographies, different interests, different characters, different personalities. You can't compare the two.
yeah. Okay, next question तो हमने answer दे दिया था. Is Europe building back their military in any way? So that was covered. And then the next question is even funnier. If Ukraine and Russia are both inducted into NATO, then they can quarrel without invoking Article 5, just like Turkey and Greece.
So, this is something we had when the first round of NATO expansion eastwards had begun in 94. We had actually said you should first take in Russia, and after that, move from both sides to the center of Europe. In 2001, remember, Putin's on record asking Clinton, in 2000, I think, or asking Clinton about joining NATO. Clinton outright said no. So the possibility had always existed. The idea had existed. It had been floated many times. Russia had formally requested Prime Minister to President, at that time he was Prime Minister, to join. The Americans said no. Now, if they were serious about security, they should have happily said yes to Russia, because Russia would have then been the biggest market. They said no. Now, pay the price for your choices.
Yeah. I'm only going to take the relevant questions. I'm not taking all of them. Is it the entire Ukraine war was a British effort to stay relevant?
No. You're overestimating Britain's ability to do stuff. But yes, Boris did scuttle the Istanbul peace process when they were going to sign a peace deal. And Britain has always played this role. It does what America does not want to do. In that sense, Britain is the biggest NGO. When it is illegal for America to do something, they use NGOs to do that shit. When it is illegal or unfeasible at a global scale, they use Britain to do that shit. But yes, Britain will always seek this, they call punching above their weight. They're very image dependent. That they are crucial and indispensable to America is very important. They are not, but they like to be crucial and indispensable, seen as being crucial and indispensable to American foreign policy.
Right. Say, yeah, bada. What is the role of Finland in all of this? Their president goes around with a smug face everywhere and flipping off everyone with BS arguments. वो छोड़ यार, वो लिथुआनिया वाला ट्वीट कर रहा है, 900 सोल्जर वाला आदमी.
Liechtenstein. No, that was Luxembourg.
Luxembourg,
Yeah.
sorry, Luxembourg. अबे 900.
All of these people, remember, Luxembourg and co at least have no skin in the game. They're irrelevant backwaters. They're not backwaters. Luxembourg is the richest country on earth, by the way. But they're irrelevant geopolitically. Finland in all of this is stupid. They should have known the history. They should have known that when they signed a deal with the Soviets and the Russians stuck to that deal scrupulously for 70 years. Okay. They decided we are not going to judge Russia by how Russia treats us. We are going to judge Russia by what our European friends say about the Russians treating them, which is again a half-truth. And see, this is the power of the EU. When you seek the EU's validation, you start buying their bullshit hook, line, and sinker. Best of luck to Finland. It's not going to get its comeuppance immediately, but when it gets it, it'll have nobody but itself to blame for it.
What will become of EU if US exits NATO?
Something good, actually. They'll have to reindustrialize. They can't be a social welfare state. They can't afford to be lax on immigration. When see, you can be a socialist when you depend on your parents. This is why they say, everyone's a socialist under 30, and over 30, you become a right winger. Why? Because responsibility is forced onto you. It's good for the EU if the US exits NATO. It'll have to reindustrialize. It can no longer do all this socialist welfare state shit, because that means they'll have to balance their budget. It means they're responsible for their own security and things. I think it'll be very good for the EU if the US exits.
Hmm. If a country like Poland got into a confrontation with Russia, what will Trump do as per NATO Article 5? What if EU member states stage a false flag or something? Why would they stage a false flag? They're crazy or what?
Look, assume it's a hypothetical question. Say you stage a false flag. Um, if Poland or even Latvia, Lithuania get into a confrontation with um, Russia, it means full-blown NATO-Russia war. Full stop. Once a country invokes Article 5, the other NATO countries are obliged to respond. Okay. Now, the only circumstance in which you can say no is if, for example, if Turkey attacks Russia, it is mutual defense, it is not mutual aggression. So if Turkey attacks Russia, they can say, well, you attacked, so we're not protecting you. But if Russia attacks, it is war.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if you want to avoid it, you can muddy the situation. If Russia attacks Poland and the other countries want to avoid war, they can claim, oh, it's not really clear. Maybe Poland provoked it and Russia was acting in self-defense. You can claim that and sit it out.
Will this break up ties with Ukraine cascade into Israel and Taiwan? US is now driven by the agenda of cutting off ties with foreign countries that cost US Treasury dollars.
I don't think people realize how valuable Taiwan and Israel are to America. The amount of intel and technology that America gets from Israel. Israel, everybody wants you to believe that this is conspiratorial Jewish lobby, protocols of elders of Zion, like that is sitting and manipulating everything in America. It is not. It is that Israel pulls its weight in terms of all the localized intelligence, electronic intelligence, signals intelligence, human intelligence that it feeds into America, number one. Number two, they have extraordinarily advanced technology and a great deal of flexibility with that technology, which also feeds into America. Okay. Taiwan, very similar. They are so important in microchips in the global economy that it is a net benefit to America. And say, unlike Israel, now Israel gets a lot of freebies from America in return for, you think they're freebies, they're actually payment for services rendered. Israel is the one country that will go to war when it is not in its own interests, if America asks them to serve American interests. Okay. Taiwan actually pays for everything. There is nothing that Taiwan gets that it does not pay for. So Taiwan actually doesn't cost the US Treasury a cent. Neither does Israel technically, if you look at it. The issue is of costing the different goods and services that are exchanged between them and how.
ये सबसे अच्छा कमेंट है कितनी हंसी है ये पढ़ के पुतिन के पास ट्रम्प की कौन सी वीडियो है दिखा दो हमें भी
है ना
कौन सी वीडियो है ट्रम्प की दिखाओ हमको जानना है अच्छा ये एक क्वेश्चन था किसी ने व्हाट इज द फ्यूचर ऑफ अमेरिका नाउ दैट ट्रम्प इज हियर and Trudeau is going out of that region in the next 4 years, considering all of this that Trump is doing geopolitically. So where do these two countries hedge themselves in your view?
Look, the problem with Canada is quite left. The center in Canada is quite left. Pierre Poilievre is not right-wing the way Trump or Javier Milei or anything are. He's like German left pretty much. German right, which is actually quite far left. The only right-wing thing he's going to do is defund the CBC, maybe at best, and
वो उसका
maybe dig.
पर्सनल खुन्नस है.
Huh, and he's going to dig for a bit of oil.
Yeah.
That's all. Other than that,
Mm.
you notice Trudeau and Pierre are lockstep on Ukraine. There is no difference between them on Ukraine or the horror that they feel at what has happened between America and Ukraine right now.
Mm. Okay. What about the neo-Nazi white terrorism, which can fill up the vacuum in Ukraine? Real or just theory? Like, I mean, what do they think Ukraine is? Like some ultra-racist society where everybody is going around killing people? I mean,
Ukrainians are very, very nice people. Okay.
yeah.
The issue is there are a bunch of Nazis. Listen, every country has its lunatics. Israel
As
has a
India
bunch,
में नहीं.
as if we don't have it in India. Exactly. We have people literally calling to kill off Muslims and this and that. Is that who we are? No. So understand, you don't judge a country by the fringe. Has the fringe played a disproportionate role in the defense of Ukraine right now? Yes. Because remember, it is always the fanatic who will join the military first. Okay. Second, will that mean at the end of the war, will that fanatic fringe have a higher or louder say in Ukrainian politics? Most probably, yes. Will it tilt the balance? I don't know. I don't know. But they don't define Ukraine.
Okay. Hi, Abhijit. What is wrong with some Indians simping for what happened with Ukraine when the latter has been completely ungrateful? I mean, foreign policy is not decided like that.
It's a point of view, bro. It's a point of
Yeah.
view. Sometimes there are momentous breaks that happen. Everybody's going to choose a side and be on it. So be it.
Okay, this is a good query. Does Europe want Russia-Ukraine border to be like a India-Pakistan kind of a situation?
Yeah, but not to keep Ukraine in check, to keep Russia in check. To keep Russia in check. If Russia keeps getting bogged down, why is the Pakistan-India border always active? It is the reason Pakistan got its nukes from China, because the agreement is you keep this border active so that India is constantly bogged down with you, that they can't focus on us. And in return, we'll give you nuclear weapons so that it never goes hot.
Okay, yeah, this question I think is not fair. Does Ukraine really have rare earth minerals? Wouldn't Soviet Russia already have exploited this if it was really there? यार
No.
नई चीजें भी तो
Soviet
मिलती हैं.
Russia wouldn't have exploited it for a reason, because in those days, rare earths are useful to the information economy, which developed after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Had the information economy developed when the Soviet Union was around, the USSR would have exploited it.
Why is Western Europe so rock solid behind Zelensky? Why do they not worry about the war next door?
Yeah, we discussed this in detail.
Yeah. So that's it. So yeah, I've taken all the questions relating to this subject. Other subjects I am not going to take because this is about Russia and Ukraine, and I'm going to stick to that. But before we wrap up, तुझे और कुछ बोलना बाकी रह गया? You think?
Ukraine deserves better. Ukraine deserves better than these cynical fucking Euro shits who've used them for their own, manipulated and destroyed that country for its own purposes. It deserves better than having a ruthless neighbor like Russia. And it's a pity, Russia's anger is with Europe and NATO, but it's poor Ukraine picking up the price for it. And Ukraine deserves better than Zelensky. Ukraine deserves better than Biden. It's a pity that they can't see how bad Zelensky, Biden, and the Democrats are for them. But when you're stuck in a trap, there's very little you can do. You stick with what you have. Ukraine's a tragedy.
Fair enough. Yeah, I just feel so bad about the ordinary citizens of Ukraine. Well, my love for them is because they have amazing boxers, by the way. Great boxers. They have a great fighting culture for people who don't know. Amazing boxers.
My great love for Ukraine comes because they have the best goddamn potatoes and tomatoes on earth.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. In America, they'll keep telling you, oh, russet gold or Yukon gold and all of that bullshit. You haven't lived, and they'll tell you Italian tomatoes. No, you haven't lived till you've tried a Ukrainian tomato and a Ukrainian potato. And you can thank
Well,
Khrushchev for it.
fair enough. All right, guys, we'll wrap it up. Go follow Abhijit on X. And if you have any other questions, you can ask them over there. And as far as I'm concerned, we'll wrap this up. You know the drill. If you want to support this podcast, please consider joining the membership program, whether on YouTube or on Patreon. If you want to buy Cārvāka podcast merchandise, you can go on Kadak Merch directly, or you can go on kushalmehra.com if you want to send one-time donations. In India, UPI, kushalmehra at ICICI. Canada, it's Interac Canada. The email ID is kushalmehra81@gmail.com. If you can't do any of that, just like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you're an audio listener, leave a rating on the audio platform. I will see you guys next time. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.